Hello. Here are my books for May and June, some of which I think you'll find to be wonderful reads for your summer. First book is Stoneyard Devotional by Charlotte Wood. I'm not exactly sure what compelled me to pick this particular book up. I think I was listening to a podcast, and one of the podcasters mentioned that she really found it quite profound. And for her, it was a book that compelled her to stop and think and meditate on its content. And so that was enough to spur my interest. Stoneyard Devotional is about a woman who basically runs away from her life. She wants to escape her reality. She, at the moment, was working for the Threatened Species Rescue Center, and she was beginning to feel that her efforts towards this cause were basically pointless, and that the world was going to hell in a handcart. So she abruptly leaves her job, she leaves her husband, and she retreats to a religious community of nuns. Not that she's Catholic or even all that religious, but she goes because she realizes that nothing, and this is a quote, nothing is asked of her there, nothing expected. And that's what she was craving in her life at that time. As she contemplates her life, she begins to reminisce about her upbringing, particularly regarding the complicated relationship she's had with her mother. While she's there and while she is ruminating on her life, she encounters three quite pivotal events. The first is this plague of mice. The book itself takes place in Australia, and I know you know from the news that Australia historically has been known for its plague of mice every once in a while. And if you've seen any news footage, it is really quite horrific. So that's what happens in this particular novel. They encounter this plague of mice, and it is really quite gruesome in its detailed explanation of how they try to get control of this vermin. So if you are predisposed to any sort of creepy crawly feelings with regards to vermin, then maybe this is a book that you might want to avoid, because it really is quite detailed in their extermination tactics. So the first event is that plague of mice. The second event is that the discovery of the remains of a nun that had once been at the same convent that she happens to be at is discovered in another country, Thailand, I believe. And the circumstances around which this nun has died are very suspicious, to the point where the other sisters in the convent almost believe she is a martyr of sorts. So the remains are found, and now the remains of this nun is making its way back to the convent. So that's event number 2. But event number 3 is linked to event number 2 in that the nun accompanying the remains is this same woman that our narrator has encountered in high school. And something happened in high school that has made our narrator carry around this burden. She has behaved, or she was part of something that she's not exactly proud of. And so she's going to have to face her past when she encounters this visiting nun. This novel is a deeply human novel. Our narrator's inner life is genuine, it's frustrating. The whole book seemed to me like an examination of conscience on her part. It's rooted entirely in our narrator's truth, but to the point where we, the readers, can really identify with certain aspects of how she is dealing with her past. On top of that, Charlotte Wood's writing is simple yet beautiful. There were several moments where I just had to kind of stop and really contemplate what it was that I just read. And for example, here's a quote. "Crossing the grass, I made a clean track of footprints, deep green on the white spread of the lawn. It returned me to my childhood, to a sense of secret authority, imprinting one's presence into a place with those clear, sharp prints. I exist." So that whole idea of what does it mean to truly exist? What does our existence in this time and place in the world really mean? Not just to us, but to those around us. So this particular novel is beautifully written, very much lends itself to contemplation. However, it's not a difficult read. I don't want to really say they're chapters. I guess their sections are short, they're succinct, and you can finish this book in a relatively short time. So the combination of its accessible length and its depth of potential discussion that you can have around it, I think really lends itself for a wonderful book club choice. So that is Stoneyard Devotional by Charlotte Wood. And let me just say that if you do own a hard copy of it, you are definitely going to be making use of those sticky tabs or those highlighters. I will be putting this particular book on my bookshelf and revisiting it later in life. Slight deviation from a personal contemplative type of examination of conscience type of book is Bone of My Bone by Johanna Van Veen. And I have become a real strong fan of Johanna Van Veen. She's become one of my favorite authors. And so when I had the opportunity to review this new novel of hers, it's just out, I was so excited to get my hands on a copy. Bone of My Bone follows two women who are thrown together during a time in history where there is great violence. It is during the 1600s in Germany, Bavaria specifically, during the 30 Years' War. One of our characters is Sister Ursula, and she is a young nun who has fled her convent to escape this invading horde of soldiers. And she carries with her an enormous amount of guilt because she doesn't want to go, but she is convinced by the other sisters to flee and save herself. Our other character is Elspeth, and she is a brave and scrappy peasant girl who's also running from the same marauding horde of soldiers. And our two characters meet up at a very pivotal moment when Sister Ursula is about to be violated. Elspeth comes along and basically saves her. And so the two women decide to go off together, and with the support of one another, they figure they can increase their odds of survival. However, their journey takes a fateful turn when they stumble across a wounded soldier who just so happens to have in his possession a holy relic, or he says it's a holy relic. It is the skull of a saint. And as he's dying, he tells Sister Ursula and Elspeth that if they reunite the skull of the saint with the rest of her remains, then their wish will come true. And so Ursula and Elspeth do exactly that. But each woman is motivated by a different reason. They're also pursued by a necromancer who is stalking them. And this necromancer wants to possess the skull of the saint as well. And use, obviously, the relic for his own undesirable, horrific, evil, vile means. It's such an entertaining read. It weaves together elements of German folklore, horror, body horror, elements of body horror. So if body horror isn't your thing, this probably isn't a novel for you because parts are really quite gruesome. And it's a love story as well. Van Veen is very visceral in her writing, and she uses violence and shock as a means to develop theme, but she doesn't use them gratuitously, I don't think. She doesn't, in this particular novel, shy away from the inhumanity of war, the selfishness of those who wage it, and the particular brutality that women are subject to in those times. And through all of this darkness and all of this violence emerges this beautiful love story. The romance between Ursula and Elspeth is soft and it's authentic, and it earns every moment it has on the page. So it's Bone of My Bone by Johanna Van Veen. Wonderful book. Next we have The Midnight Train by Matt Haig. If you liked The Midnight Library, then you will absolutely love The Midnight Train. Midnight Train is about 81-year-old Wilbur Budd, who has just finished his piano lesson when he receives a phone call from his ex-wife, someone he hasn't talked to in a lifetime. And she has called because she's dreamt of him. After all of these years, she wanted to hear his voice. And he is thrilled because he's always carried around this guilt that he is the one that is responsible for the dissolution of their marriage. At the end of their conversation, they decide that, you know what, it would be nice to speak together again sometime. And after Wilbur hangs up, he goes and searches for the last letter that she had ever written him, and he finds the last page of it, and she writes, "I love you, Wilbur, but I'm also leaving you. I don't know where the past hides, but I will meet you there." And that quote basically sets up the entire novel. As soon as he reads this, poor Wilbur then suffers a massive heart attack and dies. I'm going to put die in quotation marks. When he dies, he finds himself on this train, and with him is a spirit guide of sorts. And the spirit guide is Mrs. Agnes Deborah Amaryllis Bagdale of Bagdale's Bookshop. A woman from his past, a woman that owned this bookshop that he used to frequent when he was a young boy, a woman who definitely had an impact in his life. So she's a perfect spirit guide of sorts for him. And she tells him, you know, yes, you died. You're on this train. What we're going to do is we're going to visit the life that you've led. And along the way, the train is going to stop at pivotal points in your life. And when the train stops, there are three rules you have to follow. The first rule is you have to get off. The second rule is you must not interact with your younger self. And the third rule is that you must never be present when your past self is sleeping. I'm not going to tell you why that's an important rule to follow. So as Wilbur travels on his train and stops at these pivotal stops, some of the moments he re-experiences is a wonderful reliving of his past, but other ones bring such pain and heartbreak. It really is quite sad to read. But as he is experiencing his past, the need to break the 3 rules becomes stronger and stronger for him. Each forgotten moment tugs at his heart. He wishes he can rewrite the past, especially his past with regards to his true love, Maggie. And we, the readers, are swept into Wilbur's struggle, feeling the raw ache of longing, the bittersweet weight of choices, and we too, at least I did, reflect upon my own regrets and treasured moments that I've experienced in my life. Matt Haig's books are heartfelt, they're inviting, they're stirring, very easy to read. I started and finished this particular novel on a 3.5-hour flight that I was on. Definitely something to put on your summer read list, and definitely something I would read in tandem with somebody so that you can discuss it. So that is The Midnight Train by Matt Haig. Next we have John of John by Douglas Stewart. Now this is the 3rd book of Douglas Stewart's that I've read, and I have yet to be disappointed. Every single experience I've had delving into his novels has been a wonderful, heart-wrenching experience. In this particular book, our protagonist is John Callum, or Cal, who is a young gay man struggling in life. He, at the moment, is kind of surfing from friends' couches. When they're away, he steals their food because he has no money of his own. He is having one-night stands with various men. He's trying to basically find happiness. He does not want to return home. However, during one of his weekly phone calls with his father, as he's standing in this phone booth, his father tells him that, Grandma Ella is not well. You need to come home. Cal does not want to go home for a variety of reasons. First and foremost is because he has not come out to his father. He is a gay man and he does not want to go back to this small Scottish town where he grew up. But he loves his Grandma Ella and he feels compelled to go and help Grandma Ella. So he returns home with his long, brightly dyed hair and his androgynous appearance, exposing himself to his father's verbal and physical abuse. And we wonder why Cal's father, John, is the way he is, why he harbors such hatred and animosity, and he's just the most unhappy, angry man. And we're trying to figure out if it's because Cal's mother, John's wife, had left him. We're trying to think, well, maybe it's because he himself doesn't own the deed to the property where they live. It's Grandma Ella's, his mother-in-law's house. Is it because his son has been a disappointment? Is it because he is a Presbyterian minister and he feels really confined by the life of being a Presbyterian minister? And as a reader, at least I was trying to understand why Cal's father was the way he was. And we do learn why Cal's father, John, is the way he is. Douglas Stewart's story overflows with theme and emotion. He crafts characters whose heartaches, whose love resonates with it resonates universally. There's this universality of theme, of character. The characters seem so real. Captures honest and heartbreaking bond between father and son, the disappointments, the heartache. The novel explores identity, it explores family lineage, it explores the tension between pleasing parents and trying to be true to yourself. It's such a beautiful novel, and it's definitely one that I would suggest that you pick up. Maybe not for a summer read. Yeah, for a summer read. It's out on shelves. I think it came out about a month ago. It's John of John by Douglas Stewart.